Hey, I am in a very strange setting. I'm going to, I'm recording the audiobook for Do a Day, and I thought I might share part of that with you. So check. Oh, there. That's my amazing recording studio setup. So I thought I might just live stream a little bit of the recording if I can get my phone to stand up. Let's see. I'm going to get this all set up. I got two computers and a microphone I'm balancing, and there's that. All right. Very professional setup, nonetheless. So I have done the intro, and hey, my wife just joined. Hey, sweetie, I'll call you guys in a little bit. I just want to get this next chapter done. Hey, yo, back to yourself. I hope you and Michael get a good laugh out of this. Happy Valentine's Day, by the way. Happy Opossum Day. That was a great video you sent. All right, so I am going to record chapter 2, which is called Before My Dawn. So yeah, I've got my whole little ridiculous setup going on in a closet, which is it's like the quietest place I could be. There's road noise and wind and refrigerator noise every other place I try to record. All right, this is kind of silly looking, but hey, whatever. I figured I'd share part of the process, and some people wanted to hear what the book's about, so my wife's saying, get a cold so your voice sounds deeper. Yeah, I think I actually might be coming down with something, to be honest with you, Cher. Guy next to me on the plane last night was coughing a bit, and then he fell asleep, and well, I'm not coughing, but I don't feel very well. All right, I don't feel very good. I do feel well. My hands are working just fine. Okay, here we go. I gotta get this lined up. So yeah, I've recorded the intro and the first chapter, which is called The First Step. Chapters are called days. So this is day 2. All right, I gotta get this all lined up. There we go. That's set. All right, I need some water. This is a very thrilling Facebook Live, I'm sure. It's a lot of prep and awkwardness, maybe. Okay. There we go. I can totally just picture Sharon laughing at me while I do this, but that's good fun. All right. Day 2, Before My Dawn. In this chapter, I want to share my childhood with you so you can see what factors came together to define the man I would become. There may be things you directly identify with and other things you won't, but you should understand some of the factors that shaped my values, feelings, and situation. Beyond my specific situation, you should also think about what you experienced during your formative years, and how these events shaped who you are and the challenges you face today that you can use Do a Day to overcome. My childhood was one many Americans can probably relate to. I'm the youngest of 4 kids with parents who got divorced when I was pretty young. Like an increasing number of kids these days, I was overweight starting around age 4 or 5. I then became truly obese as I finished elementary school, peaking somewhere north of 250 pounds in high school. I stopped weighing myself after hitting 248 because I couldn't face the numbers anymore. There were a lot of things in my childhood that didn't make me feel good. It was a slow burn more than any specific shocking trauma. There were some tough, confusing times as my parents' marriage came apart in my first few years, with my father working a ton and generally seeming stressed and impatient on a daily basis, and my mother blowing hot and cold from one moment to the next. I didn't really feel paternal love and comfort with the sort of consistency and dependability. Ooh, not paternal love. Parental love. Let's try that again. There were a lot of things in my childhood that didn't make me feel good. It was a slow burn more than any specific shocking trauma. There were some tough, confusing times as my parents' marriage came apart in my first few years. With my father working a ton and generally seeming stressed and impatient on a daily basis, and my mother blowing hot and cold from one moment to the next, I didn't really feel parental love and comfort with the sort of consistency and dependability little kids really need. They had big things on their plate, so I certainly don't blame them for any of it. They did the best they could with their situation, but the impact of my situation was the same regardless of my understanding or not blaming. I needed the kind of love and comfort really little kids just need and yearn for. To put it plainly, in my formative years, when I needed support, comfort, guidance, and stability, my needs weren't satisfied by my family life. I sought that comfort and solace in food. I think a lot of kids turn to food when they aren't getting sufficient comfort and support at home. Young children aren't emotionally mature enough or self-reliant enough to solve for this need in ways that an adult might. Food, especially the processed and unhealthy variety, is accessible to most children, tastes good, doesn't judge you, and never turns you away. Food was comforting. It made me feel good, brought zero judgment, took no effort to have, and was always there for me. Our cupboards were stocked with cookies and other goodies. There was always soda in our fridge. With 4 kids, my parents didn't really monitor what each of us was eating. As my weight increased, my parents started paying attention and trying to control my eating, but it was too late. I had developed enough food sneaking skills to get around their efforts to protect me from myself. Worse than the sneaking skills, I had subconsciously developed dependence. Eating wasn't just about physical fuel to me, but emotional fuel. Actually, it was probably only the emotional fuel since I never really let myself get physically hungry. I ate primarily to feel better. Eating would satiate my anxiety and need for comfort for a few hours at most. But then I needed more food to continue to feel better. Despite feeling better in any given moment, in the end, I always felt worse. In addition, I often ate secretly because as my weight grew, so did the judgment and scrutiny of my eating habits. This secrecy and shame about eating only amplified the emotions I felt when I ate. That was a mess up. In addition, I often ate secretly because my weight grew. So did the journey. Okay, try that again. In addition, I often ate secretly as my weight grew. So did the judgment and scrutiny of my eating habits. This secrecy and shame about eating only amplified the emotions I felt when I ate. Tying strong emotion to food is a recipe for over or under eating, not for eating a healthy amount. Because of my weight, my depression intensified. I was shamed for how I looked, and slowly I moved. Because of my weight, my depression intensified. I was shamed for how I looked, how slowly I moved, what I couldn't do or do well, the clothing size I wore, or the special store where I had to shop, and the choices I made. While some of that shame came from other kids, it mostly came from my siblings and my father. Their styles were different though. My siblings were basically just mean as kids can be, not necessarily intentionally or consciously, while my father, an overweight child himself and now a doctor, was tough on me about it because he was concerned for me. My mother never really had anything to say about it either way, though she was the one buying the cookies and snacks we had on hand. I know she wanted better for me, but her motherly instinct kept her from being harsh. I do recall one specific time she actually said something to me about it. We were at a special clothing store, meaning one with clothes for what was referred to as husky kids back then. Try that paragraph again. My mother never really had anything to say about it either way, though she was the one buying the cookies and snacks we had on hand. I know she wanted better for me, but her motherly instinct kept her from being harsh. I do recall one specific time she actually said something to me about it. We were at a special clothing store, meaning one with clothes for what was referred to as husky kids back then. So it came up naturally as I struggled to button a pair of pants I was trying on. I sensed the sadness in her voice about my condition as she said she hoped I could be healthier. But that was it. Otherwise, she never outwardly judged or commented. My weight issues were built on a foundation of depression, both fueled and caused by emotional overeating. This was a vicious cycle in the truest sense. Contributing to this, after my parents divorced, I had to take on more adult responsibilities than a kid should. I wasn't always sure if we, or I specifically, would have the things we needed as a household. This ranged from small things, such as making my own breakfast and lunch, really not a big deal, but not how it was before the divorce, to bigger things, like whether our lights or telephone service would be turned off. We never went hungry, had clean clothes, and a safe bed to sleep in. And there was a lot of good that came of it. For example, I learned to be much more independent and self-reliant, which is a great thing I'm thankful for every day. As an adult, I know the things that did happen weren't terrible things per se. However, from a child's point of view, things that make you question whether you will be taken care of are very impactful on your sense of self and emotional development, which can leave a lasting mark on your life. Ultimately, there were consequences to the situation. The biggest result was that, in addition to depression, I became anxious that I wouldn't be all right. I questioned whether we had stability at home. Whether founded or not, I regularly felt this and consequently felt a need to step in a lot on a variety of things kids shouldn't have to step into. I felt as if things would fall apart if I was not there or doing them myself. That was a very heavy burden for a kid to bear. All the while, my weight kept increasing. I remember being at summer camp between 5th and 6th grade when we had to get weighed for something. When I stepped on the scales, one of my counselors burst out laughing and yelled about how I weighed the same as he did despite being a foot shorter and roughly half his age. Summer camp is where I took the brunt of the cruelty outside of my home, and I hated it. While I did enjoy some aspects of camp, overall I didn't want to be there and always wished the summers away. It didn't help that the camp was very sports focused and I was slow and bad at sports. One day in particular was especially hot as we were in the middle of a heat wave, and summers in New England are incredibly humid anyway. The temperature was well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, over 38 Celsius. We had an intra-camp track meet, and the counselors organizing it pitted all the fattest kids against each other in an 880-yard race, which is 8 times around our track. The entire camp of more than 200 kids circled the track, shouting and laughing while we grinded through it. It hurt physically and emotionally. I remember the pounding impact in my legs, the heavy heat of the day, the burn of the sun, the difficulty I had breathing from the thickness of the air, and then very quickly from the feeling from my body as I began hyperventilating. I finished, not sure in what place, but very likely last, and passed out on the finish line. I awoke in the camp lake with the counselor standing over me and the camp nurse watching from the shore as they tried to get my temperature down. It was horrible, humiliating, and hurtful. Even today, as a fit adult, I still feel that anxiety. Hey, Michelle Duddy. Happy belated birthday. All right, back to the recording. Even today, as a fit adult, I still feel that anxiety before I go out on a run. It doesn't matter that I am now an experienced runner who has finished a marathon and several shorter races. The physical and emotional trauma I experienced on that track was so strong that it still makes me nervous even when I go out for a quick, easy run. I've faced what drives that anxiety and know that I can run and I will be okay. Despite my anxiety, I still get out there and have never given in to the negative feelings and skipped a run. How I do that is a big part of what this book is about. So what does any of this have to do with Do a Day? How will this help you achieve your goals? I share my past from my formative years so you understand where I'm coming from, because if you saw me today, you might assume that I have always been fit and motivated and that I had it easy. You might think that I can't possibly understand your struggles because you think I have never struggled. You might assume that I was born this way and it's easy to maintain my weight and my fitness. You probably see other people on a daily basis and assume that things are easy for them, which is probably not the case. You might have thoughts in your head like, oh, those fit people can't possibly get it. Look at them. They don't know how hard it is or how much I hurt. They probably think I'm lazy or I don't care. But that's not true. They just don't get it. The thing is, in the same way they may not understand you, you may not understand them. I've learned this by being both you and them. And this applies to more than just losing weight or being fit. It applies to all aspects of our lives in which we want better for ourselves and see others who seemingly have it so easy, who we think could never understand our pain or struggles. Like so many people, I imagine reading this book, I struggled. I was obese. I had tough stuff to deal with as a kid that I carried forward into my adulthood. And while I got fit before high school was over, like so many people, I imagine reading this book, I struggled. I was obese. I had tough stuff to deal with as a kid that I carried forward into my adulthood. And while I got fit before high school was over, I gained weight again as an adult and went through a second struggle with weight. I've had hard times at school, lost a job, nearly lost my spouse to chronic illness. While our exact situations and struggles may be different, you and I have the common bond of having these struggles, both those we've overcome and those that lie ahead. That means we can be the same in our achievement, our overcoming, and our success. Let my past be the proof to you that I'm writing this from a place of understanding of what you're going through, how it feels, how hard it is, and how strong of a person you actually are, even if you don't consciously realize that about yourself. But you will. The title of this chapter, Before My Dawn, means this is the background I come from before I started to do a day. By sharing my background with you, my hope is that you can understand how we aren't all that different. Now we can go on to do a day together. The end of the day. In day 2, Before My Dawn, you learned about my background to understand the setting for the stories in the next chapters, but also to help illustrate some of the things I go through that shape the end of the day. In day 2, Before My Dawn, you learned about my background to understand the setting for the stories in the next chapters, but also to help illustrate some of the things kids go through that shape their adult lives. Let's look at the key messages. First, comfort and safety are basic needs of children, and they will seek it from other sources if their family doesn't provide it, such as food or other people. Second, the absence of a sense of safety for a child can lead to anxiety in adults that can drive our actions and behaviors, such as fear of things going wrong if you don't step in and do them yourself, hypochondria, or mistrust of others. And I think that is enough recording for tonight. 2 chapters in the intro done. Whew. It's getting very hot in my closet. So I know that wasn't the most thrilling Facebook Live session I've done. I don't know if any of them are. Yes, that is laundry detergent. Let me go to a less embarrassing background. So yeah, the ebook's done. For those of you who voted on the headshots for the About the Author page, you know that that's done. The ebook's done and not done. I'm waiting for it to come back from the conversion company that's getting it set up to go on Kindle and iBooks. Recording the audiobook right now, as you all just got to watch, in what I'm sure was the most entertaining Facebook Live, or most embarrassing for me, maybe. Yeah, and then it's about print. So moving ahead, very exciting. And I will go over the chapters next time. This is just a unique opportunity to share a bit of the process. It's thrilling, isn't it? Anyway, I hope everyone's having a great Valentine's Day, and have a good night.